I'd like you to allow me to take you on a journey back in time. It's 9 August 1956, and there are 20,000 women whose voices ring out in the streets outside the Union buildings in Pretoria. And their voices ring out with the phrase, "You strike the woman, you strike the rock." Those brave women leaders, all from different races, banded together on that day to fight against the systematic disenfranchisement of women that had culminated in the restrictive pass laws of that time. If you can just imagine the collective strength and courage it must have taken those women to make such a bold statement at the height of apartheid. Those efforts of those 20,000 women gave fortitude to some of the leaders that we know and recognize today. Women like Albertina Sisulu, Graça Machel, Wangari Maathai, Joyce Banda, Jill Marcus. Generation after generation of women leaders have guided us in every sphere, from politics and social change to environmental war. I myself am the product of two amazing women mentors, my maternal and paternal grands, both really strong women who grew up as part of a marginalized community that was forced to subsist on the banks of the Umgeni River in Riverside, Durban. Both my grands were functionally illiterate, but somehow they managed to ensure that their families of around 6 kids and a variety of extended people filtering in and out were managed. And they did this during really hard times and on very meager earnings. They ensured that every single one of their kids matriculated and that 80% of them went to university. They were the glue that held the family together, and they were the scaffold that the family used to elevate themselves to their respective careers and families. To this day, I'm still amazed at the ingenuity of my grands to turn absolutely nothing into something that was so spectacular and amazing for us when we were kids. I mean, these crafty old ladies somehow had managed to convince me when I was a kid that shelling peas and knitting were the most amazing jobs on earth. Now let's just say I buy frozen peas, and if I want a knitted garment, I also buy that. But back in those days, before computers and Google and apps to help us manage our lives, they made sure that personal and school schedules were managed, homework was done, and that meager budget was finely balanced. They ensured that there was love, laughter, and fun in the household. My grands were instrumental in turning around the circumstances of my family in just one generation, and that they did with no mainstream education or access to the informal or formal economy. So now I'd like you to indulge me a little as I tell you a little of my personal story. Up until 2.5 years ago, I was pretty content that I had had a fulfilling career. Up until that point, I had been working for about 10 years as an industrial psychologist specialized in psychometric assessment, feedback, development, and I'd been lucky enough to work for some really awesome companies across a variety of sectors. I was pretty happy, and I loved what I did. And then, 2.5 years ago, I was given the opportunity to get involved in a project that I knew nothing about, but I was really passionate about it. So obviously, I said yes. And now, on a daily basis, I am blessed to pay forward that invaluable mentorship and coaching that I have received over years by developing and growing the next generation of women leaders. I run a program for EY, which some of you might know as Ernst & Young, called NextGen. And NextGen's simple but powerful tagline is to develop the next generation of women leaders for the continent. Ultimately, NextGen is a story of individual successes. And to be honest, I have over 100 of those stories. But for today, I'm just going to share 3 with you. Our top achieving student, Amanda, is from the sleepy hollow town of Hammersdale in KZN, where much of nothing happens on a daily basis. And like any other community in KZN, it's ravaged by the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Amanda is one of 3 kids being raised by a single mom. And when our team of volunteers met her late in 2012, we knew immediately that this was an individual with potential. And then at the end of 2013, Amanda attained a phenomenal 92% aggregate in her final exams. When I heard about her results, I was completely gobsmacked. I mean, I knew that we had phenomenal kids on this program, but this was just truly something amazing. And then I sat back and I thought to myself, what could we have possibly done for this kid to make her any more brilliant than she already was? And I got the answer to that question earlier this year when she presented at the launch of our Cape Town chapter of NextGen. And I realized that even though we hadn't been in her life for a very long time, we helped her make a pivotal career decision. I would like to paraphrase a little of what Amanda said that day. She said, "I remember vividly the first time I went to the EY offices in Durban. I knew instantly that this was the environment I wanted to work in one day, and that corporate life is where I belong. That first initial interaction gave me the confidence to stand against my family and community pressure to study medicine." And Amanda has now successfully completed her first year of AXI at the University of Cape Town. And she has already started giving back to the program by being the older sister and mentor to the younger girls on the program, as well as presenting and interacting within our firm. There's another young lady that I'd like to tell you about, Nomthandazo Kanye, this young lady here. Grew up in difficult circumstances in Tsakane Township in the East Rand. As one of 3 kids, her mom is a domestic worker and her dad works in a factory. But none of these things have ever deterred Nomthandazo from what she wants to do. When we met this focused and determined young lady in 2012, she had already started a peer study group in her school and was trying to get off the ground a mentorship program. We knew for sure she was next-gen material when we reviewed her academics. And earlier in that year, we had an event at the Africa Leadership Academy, our leadership camp, and a dream was born for Nomthandazo. She wanted to attend that academy. So she applied with the other 4,000 students from across the continent, and only 100 are selected at the end of the day. She went all the way to the final round, but unfortunately didn't make the cut. But her resilience stood her in good stead, and she applied the next year, and was accepted on a full academic scholarship, which was supplemented by us. At the ALA, Nomthandazo has shone brighter than ever. And only 6 months into starting at the ALA, she was chosen as part of a cultural exchange program to go to the US, where she attended the Governor's Academy and gave comment on how to tailor their curriculum to a more African audience. Quite an amazing feat, I think, for a 17-year-old from the little-known township of Tsakane. There's one more amazing young girl I'd like to tell you about. This is the young lady I'd like to tell you about, Letlabile. Letlabile grew up as the youngest of 5 kids in Alexander Township and was unfortunate to lose her mom when she was only 15. And then a couple of years later found herself in the position where she needed to take care of her nephew in her sister's absence. And this whilst having to maintain her strong academics at the local school. And even though that was one of the most difficult times in her life, that was when we actually found Letlabile, and she joined our program. In 2012, Letlabile also attended the Africa Leadership Academy. And earlier this year, we were extremely proud when she graduated. Next year, she will be attending Trinity College in the US for her undergrad studies. These 3 young women that I've told you about, and the other over 100 I haven't mentioned, are all extremely passionate about making a difference and changing the circumstances within their communities. And to be honest, this is not something that we have taught them. Rather, it's something that we have nurtured and given them the opportunity to do. As I continue to engage on this program, I realize more and more that what we need as a society is not a rubber stamp of a great leader. What we should be doing is creating the right access, opportunity, and enabling environment for our young people to be the best that they could possibly be, but most especially our young girls. Over and over in this program, we realize the very important role that mentorship makes to these young women. And we find that it is this mentorship relationship, together with our holistic leadership development, that takes care of everything from academic tuition to reading clubs and even yoga and meditation classes, that creates these amazing young leaders that are well-rounded and centered, that hopefully all of you one day will encounter. And with that, I would like to invite you into the world of our NextGen girls with a video clip of the girls from a recent leadership camp. We have chosen to empower women and to focus on this program because women are the change makers. They are the ones that can make an exponential difference in a community. There's a really compelling case for empowering women in society. And as Madeleine Albright points out to us, women reinvest up to 90% of their income back into their families and their communities, when compared to men who reinvest only 30 to 40%. A recent study of Fortune 500 companies showed that those boards with the highest percentage of women on their board outperformed those with the lowest percentage by an average of 54%. And this was on measures like return on equity, return on sales, and return on capital. When you empower a woman with information, education, or even a loan, she can lift up her entire family and even impact her community. And it is this multiplier effect that an educated and empowered woman has that I believe can turn around our growing, pervasive, negative narrative in this country. I'm quite sure we've all heard this narrative. It goes a little bit like this. This country is just going down the tubes. There's absolutely no hope for us. Our government is useless. Our government is corrupt. Crime is just out of control. As a psychologist, I say to you that the more we tell ourselves the story, the more we believe it, and the more our actions and behaviors reinforce it. I believe that South Africa is at a tipping point right now, and that programs like NextGen can tip us in the right direction. Ultimately, what this country, this continent, and this world is in dire need of is educated, ethical, and empowered women leaders that will transform our communities. We need to know and acknowledge again that you strike the woman, you strike the rock. Thank you.